lordship. And purport. Actually, Lord Vishnu maintains and accomplishes all good fortune. If one has to take shelter of Lord Vishnu, why should the demigods take shelter of Lord Shiva? They did so because Lord Vishnu acts through Lord Shiva in the creation of the material world. Lord Shiva acts on behalf of Lord Vishnu. When the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 14.4 that he is the father of all living entities, aham bija prida pita, this refers to actions performed by Lord Vishnu through Lord Shiva. Lord Vishnu is always unattached to material activities, and when material activities are performed, Lord Vishnu performs them through Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is therefore worshipped on the level of Lord Vishnu. When Lord Vishnu is untouched by the external energy, he is Lord Vishnu. But when he is in touch with the external energy, he appears in his feature as Lord Shiva. So this is the eighth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So the whole Srimad Bhagavatam is a conversation between Maharaj Parikshit and Sukadev Goswami, which itself is being reported by Sutta Goswami to the sages at Naimisharanya. It was all written down by Vyasadeva. But within that conversation between Maharaj Parikshit, who is a disciple, and Sukadev Goswami, who's the spiritual master, there are many other conversations take place. It's like we also do it if we talk to somebody, we may report a conversation that we heard or were part of with somebody else. So there are many different layers in the Bhagavatam. So you get conversations within conversations within conversations, or stories within stories within stories. You can't exactly say stories because almost all the histories, if you like, in the Bhagavatam are true. There's a few of them that are analogies or allegorical, like the Paranjana story. But anyway, basically there's all these different layers of conversations, and this is one layer where it's the demigods are addressing Lord Shiva. So that's just to put it a little bit in perspective of what the Srimad Bhagavatam is. And so the Srimad Bhagavatam is based on two questions that Sukadev is asked by Maharaj Parikshit, because Maharaj circumstantially is being cursed to die, and so he recognizes Sukadev Goswami as a great spiritual master, and he asks him, what is the duty of everyone in all circumstances? And then the other question he asks, and specifically, what is the duty of somebody who's about to die? So to say that question about the duty of everybody is more like on behalf of everybody, on behalf of all souls, at least those in human bodies who can understand something. But what is the duty of someone who's about to die is more specific to himself. He's putting himself in that position. Of course, he's a transcendental soul. He's self-realized. He doesn't really need to hear, but he chooses that's what he wants to do for the last 7 days of his life, because he has 7 days to live. He's told he has 1 week to live. So this whole conversation is an expansion of the answers for that original question. Of course, Maharaj Parikshit continues and he asks other questions, because Sukadeva Goswami will describe something, and then Maharaj Parikshit will then be stimulated to ask another question and another question and another question, and there will be many, many answers, and many of the answers will then be explanations of different things that happen, different conversations. Like there's one very long section where Vidura and Maitreya are speaking, or King Yudhisthira is speaking. There's very long sections like that, but they're all within this conversation. So one of the things, so getting round to what I was going to say, is one of the things that Maharaj Parikshit asks Sukadeva Goswami is about the creation, the Shrishti Tattva. How is this material world created? So Prabhupada makes the point that before you can understand the internal energy of the Lord, you have to actually understand the external energy of the Lord. You have to appreciate Krishna's position as the creator of this material world before you can really appreciate his rasa tattva, or his internal energies, his Vrindavan Leela. You have to understand that Krishna really is God and how great he is, how far, 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 far beyond us he is. And to understand the position of God. So understanding something about how he's the creator of this world, which for him is very insignificant. It's an insignificant thing that he's created this planet. But obviously for us, we see it as substantial and significant. But Krishna has created everything, but he creates indirectly. And as it says here in the purport, that this is all taking place through Lord Shiva. It's described that there's the Mahatattva, which is like the raw materials for creating the material world. And then Krishna glances over the material energy, this Mahatattva. Just like that, glance. But it said that glance is actually Lord Shiva. So then Lord Shiva takes up his role. The different Vishnus take charge of the different parts of the creation. So originally the universes come out of the pores of the body of Lord Mahavishnu, or Karanadakshay Vishnu. It's called Karanadakshay Vishnu because he's lying on the Karana ocean. So this is all described, some of it's described in the second canto, and then more is described in the third canto. It's a bit, you could say it's a bit more difficult to understand or to follow than the parts of the Bhagavatam that have stories. At least I find like that. I find it's easier to read the stories. Like this story that we're in the middle of, the story about the ocean of milk. But still, there's always, we need to understand how Krishna is creating. So everything is going on by Krishna's arrangement. Nothing's happening by chance. The scientists, many scientists have this view that everything happens by chance, and by chance there was a singularity and a big bang, and everything manifested. But we know that's very unlikely. It's much more likely that there was a supreme person who arranged all this, because everything is so complicated, and everything's so interrelated and interconnected, and everything's working in a very ordered way. It gives the impression that there must be a designer, and there must be design. There's obviously designs, so there must be a designer. There are obviously laws, so there must be a lawmaker. It's like you can see the hand of God. And it's described in the Bhagavad Gita, Maya jakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam hetu nanina kuntiya jagat viparivartate. So everything's going on under Krishna's direction. The material world is created, and then it's destroyed, and then again created, and then destroyed. So it's going on like this eternally. Material energy is eternally existing, but it's manifest and unmanifest, manifest and unmanifest. It's one of Krishna's energies. So Krishna is the source of everything. That's the definition of God. It's the source of everything. Sarvakarana Karanam. So the universe has come out of the pores of Garbhodakshay Vishnu. So pores on our body, very small. You can't see them unless you take a microscope. But you can imagine Krishna's body. He's lying in his yoga nidra, and these seed universes are coming out of all the pores. So he exhales, and then the universes come out. And then he inhales, and all the universes will be withdrawn. So you can imagine the time span is a little different. On a higher level, the time is going, what we would think is faster, much faster. Down here, time is going more slowly. So there's a differential in how time is moving. Time is relative. So the universe is, this universe that we live on is compared to one mustard seed. So a mustard seed, if you do cooking, mustard seed is very small. You can hardly pick it up, so small. Just one, it's difficult. So this universe is like a mustard seed, and there's a sack of mustard seeds, if you can imagine, like a big sack of mustard seeds. And that gives us an idea of how many universes there might be. Actually, there's unlimited universes, but you think of a sack of mustard seeds, and we're on one of the mustard seeds in that sack. So, and this is only the material creation, and the material creation is 1/4 of the whole creation. Can't say creation for the spiritual world because it's eternal, but the cosmos, or the reality, if you like, only 1/4. Prabhupada describes it like a cloud in the corner of the spiritual sky. There's a material world. But still, there's all these zillions of universes. And Krishna's, he's not really so interested in the material world, so he delegates the creation to the Vishnus, the Mahavishnu, and then the Garbhodakshay Vishnu, which is a form of Vishnu that enters in each universe. And then there's Kshiradakshay Vishnu, who enters in the heart of each living entity. So this whole creation, this whole material world is arranged like that. And then Lord Shiva is taking charge of all the different things through his wife, who is Durga. So Durga is considered to be the shadow, like a shadow. It's like when you have your hand and you shine a light, you can see the shadow of your hand, and if the hand is moving, then the shadow also moves. So the material energy is like that, it's moving, and it's like the origin is the spiritual energy. But it seems like, because the shadow is moving, it seems like it's moving independently. If you don't think about the source of the light, you can think, well, this shadow. So we're involved or attracted or entangled with this shadow energy, thinking it's all very nice, but actually it's just a reflection of a spiritual reality. People think it's very important, all sorts of things that go on in this world, whether there's hoaxes or coronavirus, all these different, whether there's UFOs or different things happening. And it is, on one level, it's interesting, but on a higher level, it's insignificant. It's so insignificant because, the ultimate reality is far, far above. So when the universes are created, there are 3 subtle energies and 5 gross energies. that make up the material energy. So everything in the material world is made of these elements, which are Bhumi, Apo, Nalokai, Vayu, Kamano, Bodhi, Evaja. Ahankara iti yame, Bina Prakriti Astada. So earth, air, fire, water. Earth, air, fire, water, ether. Intelligence. Those are the 5 gross ones. And then the subtle ones are intelligence, mind, and false ego. So these 8 elements expand into 24 elements, which means they have the senses and then the sense objects and the means of perception. And you have the working senses, which are not the same as the senses of perception. You have the arms and the legs, and the tongue has a double function. It's a sensory. We perceive taste, but we also talk. So we perceive the taste, which is a sensory perception, but then we also talk, which is a working function, which hopefully I'm doing something useful with my tongue right now. So the scientists, they get absorbed in studying these 24 elements of the material world. But they're only actually studying the externals. They're missing the point of the source of all of this. So the source is more important than the actual thing that the person's created. Think, well, the person who's created something wonderful must be more wonderful than the thing he created. The material world is very amazing, but it's been created by somebody who's way more amazing. So the intelligent thing is to seek out the person who has created all this. There's the art and the artist, but the artist is capable of producing many works of art. Maybe one work of art is very impressive, but there's so many things. So like that, Krishna is, in his unlimitedness, is able of producing unlimited, wonderful things. So this is it's part of his being God, his godness, is that he is unlimited in all his abilities. He has every amazing quality infinitely, in infinite quantity. So he's infinitely artistic, or infinitely kind, or infinitely tolerant, or infinitely inconceivable also. So I don't really have many more things to say, but I just wanted to describe something I found very interesting when I read the description of creation. It was how the elements are nested one inside the other. You know this expression, nested, when you have one thing, comes from another, comes from another, comes from another. So it's like in the Bible it says, in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, and then there was a creation. And God worked hard for 6 days, and then on the 7th day he had to rest. But it's not actually a very intellectually satisfying explanation. So in the Bhagavatam it's explained that first of all there's sound, which is the same. When you say the word, it means sound. So in the beginning you have the sound, which travels in ether, the element of ether, which is the most subtle element. And sound is the most subtle what do you say, sense object, sound. Okay, so you have the sound in ether. So ether only has that one quality, that it transmits sound. Because you can't see ether, or it's just, but you can hear. So things travel through the ether. You can pick up like radio waves from outer space, but it travels through the ether. There's no air out there, but there's something called ether, which is very subtle. It's not as subtle as mind or intelligence or false ego, but it's a gross element, but it's the most subtle. So then from the ether, and related to the ether is the ear, okay? So they're related together. You've got the ear and the ether and sound. And of course, then you have the demigod controlling those things. But so those things are created together, the ear and ether and sound. And then the next level of creation is the skin and the sense of touch. And that comes with the air, the element air. So air is it's related with touch and hearing, because it means you can hear the air, you can hear the roaring of the wind, when it's very stormy. But you can also touch it. If you put your hand out the window, you can see, oh, it's very windy. You can touch the air. Well, that's how our sense of touch, the skin is related because our sense of touch depends on air, The air is moving around the body. So when we touch something, does it change? We feel it, something, And touch is very important. Most people have some attachment to sex life, and that's all based on a lot anyway, a large percentage is based on the touch, the touch sensation. Touching, skin touching skin or whatever. The next element is fire. And so fire is related to the eye. It makes sense. Because fire is light. The eye can perceive light, different levels of light and different spectrum of light, color.
Connected with form?
Yeah.
Fire and form.
Yeah, so fire has the three qualities. It has sound, touch, and form. It's a shape you can see, but it's also you can touch fire, or you can feel it. If you go too near, you get burned. But you can feel the heat of the fire. Sometimes you feel something's warm, and you think, yeah, it's been on the fire. Still it's warm. So there's touch, and there's also the sound. The fire. You hear the fire is crackling. Sometimes an explosion. Fire. And then the next level is water, which is related to the tongue, because the tongue has got to be wet. We cannot have any nice experience on our tongue if our tongue is dry. You try eating with a dry tongue, it doesn't work. That's why there's all the saliva in the mouth. And the tongue is obviously the sense of taste, because we can taste water, and water has a form. We'll just lie in a puddle, or you can put it, in a jug or a bottle or whatever. But you can see that it has some form. If you put one drop, the drop has a nice little round shape on a lotus leaf. And then you can touch water, and you can hear water. You can hear the roaring of the waterfall, or the gurgling of the pipes, or something like that. You pour water from one glass to another, it makes a noise. And the final one, ether, air, fire, water, and earth. Jai. So earth has all the qualities. You can hear the earth if the earth is an earthquake, or there's somebody's throwing buckets of, soil around. You can hear thuds on the ground. You can touch the earth. The earth obviously has a form, the big mountains and things like that. You can taste the earth. We don't usually eat dirt. Krishna does sometimes, but it's not something to be imitated, really. But everything comes from the earth. All the tastes that we have, the nice tastes that we have in our lunch or breakfast, all these tastes have actually come from the earth because the animals live on the earth, or they eat the plants.
I thought they came from the supermarket.
The supermarket, yes. But the supermarket is built with earth, isn't it? It's built of bricks, so obviously it's the same thing. Yeah. Yes. But ultimately everything comes from the earth in terms of food. The apples, come from the tree. So maybe some things come from the sea, or people can live on prana, which is just it. But usually food is coming from the ground or from animals that live on the ground and eat grass, like that. So, and earth has the sound, touch, form, taste, and smell, which all the other ones don't have. All the other forms do not have, sensory objects do not have a smell, so you can smell the earth. It's a pastime of pigs that they like to stick their nose in the earth and like this, sniffing for a truffle or something like that in the earth. Or when Lord Varaha, he had to find out the earth, when the earth had fallen into the Garbhodak ocean. He went down there in the dark in the bottom of the ocean, and he found it by sense of smell. So all these elements are created one after another and one from the other. First of all, there's the ether, and then the other elements come out one after another. And it's also, these elements cover the earth, the universe. The universe has it's like an egg, and it has like an egg shell, but there's another shell after that, another shell after that, another shell after that, another shell. And each shell is a different element. You want to?
The map.
You can go get the map. Jason will get the map and show you. But we can imagine, it as an egg with many shells. And so similarly, the universe is covered, but similarly the soul is also covered by these kosha, or layers of all these different elements that are covering the soul. So we're all wrapped up in the material energy. The little tiny spark of soul is wrapped in this big lump of material energy. And the idea is to release the consciousness from this material covering. There's one book, Brihad Bhagavatamrita. It describes how one soul travels through all these different layers to leave the universe, and he meets all the different deities as he travels through each layer, and he comes to the layer of. You can maybe put here. Is it? Maybe it'll just wobble off. But anyway, so down here there's some layers. I don't know if it's actually the layers of the universe, is it? Oh yeah, it says earth, water, fire, air. These are the order. Okay, the order is earth, water, fire, air, ether, false ego, Mahatattva. And this is Lord Shiva. Sorry, the people can't see, but you can look after. Here's Lord Shiva beyond the material world. And this is Mahavishnu with all these the golden balls there. The universe is coming out of Mahavishnu. And this is Durga, or Maya, the wife of Lord Shiva. So it's nice visual presentation, because then this is the Brahma Jyoti, and then this is the spiritual world. So it's like that. And there's all the Shastric references down the sides for if you want to look up all these details. And that's a plan view there. That's a plan view of the earth. The earth is like the halfway across the if you would cut the egg across the middle, there would be like a big circle, like a big flat circle, because it's half, or even like a potato, when you cut it, there's a circle, flat circle. So that's that plane view of the middle. And in the middle is Meru, Mount Meru. It's like a spindle, and everything's going. I don't understand it all. It's very complicated, and you need a big brain to understand it all. But we can understand something, but it's very nicely designed, it's very complicated, and all the elements are very nicely organized. Everything is running on very nicely for to facilitate us, the fallen souls. Krishna has made a big arrangement for our to have our material pleasure and our material desires fulfilled here in the material world. But it's as I said, it's insignificant compared to what's going on in the spiritual world. Okay. There's one devotee actually gave a whole series of classes explaining this. Giving a lot more information. So if anybody wants, they can find those out.
Sadhaput.
No, it wasn't Sadhaput. It was Gokul Chandra Prabhu, and he worked with Dalavir Maharaj, and they spent like a whole year researching all the texts. Like there's a lot in the Brahma Samhita. It gives all the quotes of all the different Puranas and different things. They wanted to make something definitive that really, really Shastric, completely Shastrically based understanding of the whole cosmos. Because people were making mistakes, it's easy to make a mistake. So they wanted to make it have some clear. But it was very difficult to get all the information. Like this is it's really packed tightly. But this, you couldn't get it smaller than this. If you make it smaller than this, it's not legible. So that was the smallest they could make it, with all the information in one place. But yes, Sadhaput did quite a lot of research. So when people talk about the flat earth, it's the earth's plane, the earth's plane, which is the Bhumandal. It's the middle cross section of the universe, and we're in the middle. You could say what's known as Bharatvarsha is in the middle of the Bhumandal, the greater Earth circle. Some people say we're on a planet, and some people say we're on a flat. Some people say we're on a lotus petal. It's all lotus shaped, which sounds more likely. But I don't know, because I can't see, and I don't have transcendental vision or understanding. But the main point is that Krishna is Supreme Lord, and we're His eternal servant. And according to spiritual purity, according to how devoted you are, the more you'll understand. You can understand more of reality by developing your spiritual consciousness, because reality is ultimately spiritual. So the more you purify your consciousness, the more you can understand of the actual reality, and you put your energy into the material world. You understand the material world is like it's peripheral to what we would really be concerning ourselves with. So this is the message of the Bhagavatam, yeah? The message of the whole Bhagavatam is to transfer our consciousness to the spiritual subject matter and forget about the material subject matter. Savayunashikuntiya.
Actually, Siddhanta explains the elements in a little different way.
Yeah, I know.
Which is more attractive for the modern people.
Yeah, it talks about gases.
He says earth is solids.
Yeah.
When he says about
There's gas.
gases is air,
Yeah.
liquids, water, so on. The whole periodic table.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's when you say earth, air, fire, water, and ether. Yes, but what about all the elements, What about all, hydrogen and helium and calcium and, beryllium and nitrogen and, we know more now, we know more than it. But actually it's not necessary. This is enough to understand. And if you say, what about all the different metals? Well, they all come under the, maybe apart from mercury, come under the umbrella of solids, just earth. It's a breakdown of earth, but earth, just to know that it's all earth is enough. Similarly, all the gases will come under air, or all the liquids will come under water. So you can say it's a simpler understanding, but it makes more sense. It's more workable in terms of, spiritual focus. We don't need to get too absorbed in material things. Okay, anybody else want to say something? Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
I read in the Bhagavatam that the people living in these layers,
Yes,
the whole civilization,
yes. Amazing.
that's far out.
Yeah, I know.
They each have their deity, they worship in each layer.
Yeah.
The earth layer is Varaha.
Yeah. Yeah, I read it. Yeah.
Bigger than the actual universe.
10 times. Each layer is 10 times bigger than the universe. And then the next one is 10 times bigger again.
It's a world that you don't know anything about.
They described, I heard it described like the universe, inside the universe is like one garden pea, like a pea, inside a football.
Okay.
But I think that's even, the coverings are like a football, and we're like a pea inside the one pea. But I think it's bigger. I think it would be bigger than football. I think it would be more. If it's 10 times, 10 times, 10 times.
The other layer is 10 times thicker than that.
Yeah, it's more than a football, yeah. You'd have to do the maths. You'd probably end up with something as big as this, probably 1 million miles across or
How many
something.
elements? 8?
Yeah,
So it's 8 zeros.
yeah, yeah. 8, which is 100 million.
It's a lot.
The 100 million times the diameter of a pea.
It's far away.
Yeah. So a pea is not, it's more like an atom. Instead of a pea, you could say an atom.
Maybe you could say even in this human society, on this planet, there are many layers of organization.
Yes.
And there are many things we don't know anything about.
Yeah. And there are subtle things that some people can pick up, isn't it? Some psychic people can pick up beings on other levels, and there's fairies and... He can.
I heard, I don't remember,
Yeah.
To see what the Russians were doing.
Yeah. And
They
they saw a submarine.
human devolution.
They saw a submarine, yeah.
Bhagavati was spoken.
That's in human devolution.
Yes, I read that.
Karma discusses.
Yeah.
Yeah, they found out about the Typhoon class submarine.
Yeah. I think we could practice doing things like that, you know. Did you lose
Yeah, we
it?
could.
No,
No problem.
chair over there. No, I don't have anything with small button. But thank
What
you.
would be the purpose?
Well, we could say.
Huh?
I think we could.
I could get easily carried away.
I think we could get mixed